Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your massive Manchester United versus Fulham preview. I say massive, it's not going to take an hour, but it's a huge game. And I've got to say, I'm worried about it. I am worried about this game. I said it in the watch along last night, didn't I? I worry about this because the big headline here is that I want to talk about a few things, tactically, player selection, etc. But did you know that Fulham are actually 6th in the Premier League for their away record? So if the league was just being done on away records, they would be 6th in the league. They've only lost 3 games away from home this season, which is incredible. Manchester City have lost more than that. Newcastle have lost more than that. So they are a very good side and they do suit away better. 6 wins, 4 draws, 3 losses. And as we know, we've lost 7 games at home. So, and we're weak. We are weak. We've been weakened again by the sending off of Dorgu, which represents a team that I just don't think we can argue with, really. We'll talk about that in a moment. So, straight off the bat, this is not a game we can afford to lose. We're heading into what I call is going to be a monumental week for 2 weeks, week and a half for Manchester United. We've got Fulham. And then we've got Sociedad home and away. Obviously, we've got Arsenal next weekend, which is big in its own way. But if we're being completely honest, I'd lose to Arsenal and beat Sociedad and Fulham. And that's just where the season's at. Some people say, where would we be without Bruno this season? Well, we wouldn't be any higher than 15th or 14th because that's where we are with him. So I don't know. I don't think the season's following the normal plan in relation to, like, Arsenal is a big game, but I don't think it's as big as these cup games. So we've got to find a way to beat Fulham. And I don't know. Look, tactically, selections, a lot of people will say, well, why is Onana playing? Why is Rasmus playing? We'll talk about that in a moment. But let's talk tactics because I couldn't believe it this morning when I was reading some of the stuff that was being put out there during the Ipswich game, after the Ipswich game, from these tactico hipsters who, look, you don't get anything in life for a told you so. And I think too many people around this Man United fan base are obsessed with being right about things they won't get anything for. Supporting your team is surely about your team winning. And somewhere along the line, some people seem to have lost that ability. Whether it's ex-players, the media, or certain fans, it has become an obsession to be proved right. And I find myself going, what will you get for that? Nothing. I think some people have become so obsessed with being right in their own head. It's a weird phenomenon because you're not going to get anything for it. In fact, the team will suffer for you being right. What we need is this system to work. What we need is for this manager to work. And what we need is to somehow start progressing from the turmoil that we are in as a football club. But the amount of people who talk about the 5 at the back and the tactics and how we should go back to a back 4, it's just nauseating at this point. And they'll get their little flipboard out and they'll talk about this, that and the other. But it's not worth it. You may as well wipe your arse on it, lads and ladies. Because the point is, Amrim is the coach. He's been at Sporting. He was wanted by other clubs. We took him. That's who our manager is. It ain't you. So you can tweet, TikTok and do whatever you bloody well like. You're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. Because what happened yesterday was he took Garnacho off. And we all thought that was a mistake. But it wasn't a mistake because we won the game. And we didn't win the game luckily. And we wouldn't have won the game by 6 if Garnacho had stayed on. It was a big call and he knows why he made it. And there might be a multitude of reasons. Maybe Garnacho's had a bad week in training. Maybe he didn't fancy his fitness levels. Whatever, he got it right. And I still read certain journalists going, Amrim got it wrong taking Garnacho off. Well, he didn't get it wrong, did he? We won with 10 men when it was 2-2 with 10 men. So he didn't get it wrong. He just didn't do what you wanted. And this is what I mean about I told you so. Even when we win games now, people are still moaning. I've literally read 3 reports that he got it wrong taking Garnacho off. Well, he didn't get it wrong. He got it right because guess what? He's the boss. And the respect for the manager has come, in general, the respect for the Man United manager has disappeared over the last few years. And who do I blame for that? Well, obviously I blame the owners and what they've done to the football club. But it's incredible. Like, I saw other people were sending me screenshots of people going, that's it, game over. He's got to go to a back four now. Ipswich are going to absolutely destroy us in the second half. There's no way a back five's going to work against this Ipswich side. They're going to pop them off. It's going to be about 4 goals easy for Ipswich. We win 3-2. Radio silence because the hipsters are wrong. And as I said in my match reaction, it's the second time we've done this. We've gone down to 10 men. It looks like a lost cause. And then we defend fantastically well and we win the game. Arsenal in the cup and now Ipswich. And what people don't realise is a back five is really difficult to deal with. Really difficult. Because it's an extra defender. You've still got your pivot in front. You've got to break them down. There's very little space. So you're reliant on worldy build-up play, crosses, etc. And that's very difficult. And as Amrim said after the game, our players are very comfortable with a low block. He doesn't want to play a low block, but our players are very comfortable with it, and they showed it again. So just on the formation, I mean, there's intelligent people and there are naive people. And this conversation about changing the tactics has become one of the weirdest things of 2025. As I say, we've won 7 games, we've lost 3, and we've drawn 2 in 2025. It ain't the worst record in the world. We're playing badly. He needs players in the summer, but he's actually doing a better job than the previous manager was doing in his last 8 games with his players and players that can't play Amrim's tactics. So look, we just got to get through to the summer and then hopefully back this manager. But this Fulham game becomes really, really important. And people would say, why is Onana in goal? I'm a little bit worried about the reaction to Onana. I've seen people calling him a fraud and everything. I can't stand the use of that word. I can't. I didn't like it with Ten Hag. I don't like it with Amorim. And I can't stand it when people use it towards players. It's childish. It's like giving them 1 or 2 out of 10. It's just babyish. Like, come on. Fraud. It's just so offensively immature. Like, it really is. We're Manchester United, for God's sake. We can construct sentences. Fraud. I mean, is he a fraud? Is he really? Do you know what the definition of a fraud is? Is he really not a goalkeeper? Is he really a bank? Does he work in a bank at HSBC and he's scammed his way into the goal of Man United? Of course he's a bloody goalkeeper. He's not a very good one. He's not a bloody fraud, is he? It's just, it's like, 10 years of doing this and you're holding back the tide at times. You're like, oh God, you open the door to this sort of content and of course you can't stop other people coming in. And it's like, the language they use, it's just babyish, really babyish. I would drop Onana. I'm not calling him a fraud. I would drop Onana because he's not playing well and he is costing us goals. There's no doubt that Onana in a certain system would be better. I've said before about Onana, I think if you put him in goal for Liverpool, he'd be a better goalkeeper because he wouldn't have as many shots to deal with and he'd be in a better environment. And I think when you look at Onana's career, Ajax, Inter, they are teams that were quite successful when he was there. And I think if you put a goalkeeper in a more successful team, their job gets easier. Jordan Pickford in goal for Man City would have an easier life than Everton. Still be the same goalkeeper, but would look better. It's been my big problem with Ederson over the years. Is Ederson really that good? I look at Alisson at Liverpool over the years. He's been busier than Ederson, and I think he's proven himself to be a very good goalkeeper. Whereas Ederson, I think, doesn't really get worked much because he has played in a team that dominates the opposition. So I think if you put Onana in those types of teams, he looks better, and I think that probably uncovers what his issues are. In a team where he's busy, he gets exposed as a goalkeeper that isn't as good as what we thought. But that's not my job to know that. That's not your job to know that. We should have had scouts who realise that, because in goalkeeping, it's very obvious. If I've got a goalkeeper that looks good and looks like a ball-playing goalkeeper, I've got to look at the team he's doing it for. And if he's doing it for teams that are very dominant, then I'd be a little bit concerned what he's going to do in a team that's not dominant, because you're under more pressure, you've got to pull off more shots. He can't deal with it. And it's 2 years now. Champions League, we got knocked out because of him. And this season, there's been a lot of goals because of him. And fundamentally, his basics as a goalkeeper just aren't good enough. His decision-making is not good enough. And it's concerning because it's in more areas than we thought. I know that his feet work as a goalkeeper isn't good enough. Like we saw yesterday, that cross, his feet are all over the place. As I say, he's like, he may as well start going, tragedy. It looks like he wants to audition for Steps. But not only that, when he makes a save, he hasn't got the wrist work either. He can't palm it out of danger, which is a skill. We saw yesterday, again, with his kicking, he doesn't really play out from the back, which is what we bought him for. Maybe that's to do with the defenders in front of him, but he boots it long, aimlessly a lot. And on top of that, you look at when he runs out for Dorgu, he's not a great sweeper keeper either. So there's just lots and lots of fundamentals to his game that aren't good enough. And we're approaching that point where you have to call him a flop. Because I think year one, you're always going to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. But by the end of year two, you're sort of looking at it and going, right, there's no mitigating circumstances here. You're not in your early 20s. You're not a teenager. You're in your mid-20s. You've had 2 years at Man United and you're still making incredibly bad mistakes. He has to go, but there is no one else to play in goal in this game. So you've just got to hope it's like he has one of those games which he has had where the saves he makes don't go into danger zones and he doesn't make any mistakes. And I think that's where we are with Onana at the moment. It's not about whether he can play well, because I think sometimes he does. It's more about, can we get a game where he doesn't make any mistakes that cost us? Because let's be clear, Ipswich yesterday only scored 2 goals because of mistakes. Beyond that, our defenders played very, very well. So Onana has to go in goal because I can't see anybody else who would go in goal. Again, with the back five, there are no other options. Martinez is injured. Lindelof is not good enough. Evans is injured. Dorgu is suspended. So the back five is the back five. And amongst that back five, I was quite happy with the 3 centre-backs in that sort of setup with De Ligt to the right. Mazraoui is always going to be pretty steady. Dalot is a massive concern. And again, I think this is a problem that, I mean, Amorim clearly likes Dalot, but you look at the treatment of some players that haven't performed and they've been moved out of the team, the Casemiros, etc. I don't see a justification for Dalot, but there is nobody else. So it's the same as Onana. You can't drop Onana for Binder because Binder is injured and then you've got nobody else. You can't drop Dalot because Dorgu is suspended and also there is nobody else. So we can't put Ahmad on the wing because he's injured as well. So we literally are having to pick players at the moment that and we'll talk about another player like that in a moment that we have to pick. Into the midfield, I think Bruno and Agate is the best choice. And I thought they did quite well against Ipswich. I don't think it's the perfect choice. I think there's a vulnerability there. And I mean, look, Bruno got man of the match yesterday. I thought he played, I think I gave him a 7. I see some people gave him like a 5 and a 6, and some people gave him an 8. The most hard to read player in our team, but I don't think he's hard to read. I think he does bad things and good things. And some people see the good things and see that's enough to give him man of the match. And some people see the bad things and go, I don't think that's good enough. I figured Bruno out. That's what it is. He's such a divisive player. Some people want to give him man of the match and some people want to say he played below average. And it's because he does do loads of bad things and he does do loads of good things. And that's Bruno Fernandes. It's no deeper than that. He does do bad things and he does do good things. Whereas a lot of players will do bad things and get a bad match, or good things and get a good match, or do okay things. He actually does a lot of bad things in a game and then does a lot of good things in a game. And that's the thing with Bruno. And it just depends on what you focus on. And I sort of like, take the good, take the bad, mix it together and see what we end up with. And it's normally a 6 or a 7. I don't like him in the midfield. I don't think he's got the... I think what we're actually doing is asking a player at 30 years of age to change his position into one of the most demanding positions in the modern game. He has got a good engine, so it's not really going to kill him as stamina-wise. But he's 30 years of age, and it's like asking Erling Haaland to become a number 10. You're asking a number 10 to become a holding midfielder. It's not easy, and it's not really the skill set that Bruno has. He's not physical. He's not somebody that tracks runners. He's not particularly good in the air. I think it's a very difficult job for him to do. But I'd still pick him over Casemiro or Eriksen, and we don't have Collier or Mainu at the moment. So again, I can't moan about it. He's the best option in that position. But I think there is a vulnerability there that could get exposed in these games that we've got coming up. Front 3 picks itself for me. The only contentious one might be Rasmus, but we're playing Fulham in an FA Cup game where, again, I can't throw Obi Martin in at the start against Fulham's centre-backs who are ridiculously physical. He didn't even come on against Ipswich, so we're not in a point, I don't think, to start Obi Martin. Doesn't mean that Ruben Amorim won't do it, but I don't think we're in a position to throw a 17-year-old starting into Fulham. Again, there is nothing else we can do. I would be looking at keeping 11 players on the pitch this time, and then around 60 minutes throwing Obi Martin on, which is what I hoped we were going to do against Ipswich. So I'd stick to that path, even though obviously there are concerns around Rasmus, as we are well documented. I still think he's going to play minutes between now and the end of the season because we're so short, and a 17-year-old, even if he started and did well, he's not going to play every minute of every game. And I'd rather nurture him into a game like this. And obviously Xerxes played quite well, so he's going to start. And then, I mean, Garnacho's a little bit contentious. I spoke about it this morning, about him walking off down the tunnel, which I wasn't actually aware of. Look, Man United... The Garnacho situation, as I said this morning, is a precarious one because we tried to sell him in January. He knows that. He may well be aware that that's going to happen in the summer. And if he knows he's going to be going in the summer, he may well have checked out. And therefore, that makes Amorim's job very, very difficult. It's like with Ronaldo, isn't it? When Ronaldo just walked off and wouldn't come on. You empower a player when they sort of feel like they're not part of it anymore. They become more powerful. And I'm not saying that's happening with Garnacho, but this is just another example of running your club badly, where a player may have felt devalued and now thinks he's going to be sold in the summer anyway. But to us, we can't drop Garnacho. There is nobody else who can play. Mason Mount, not fit. Eriksen can't do that role. We can't put Bruno in that role. We have to pick Garnacho. And he's got a good record against Fulham. But there are a number of players when I look at that team, and this is a major issue for United at the moment. There are a number of players when I look at that team that I probably wouldn't pick or are debatable. Goalkeeper, Dalot, Garnacho, Rasmus, all for different reasons. Bruno in the midfield. That's 5 players going into a crucial game. 5 players that debatably you wouldn't pick, or you wouldn't pick them in them positions for different reasons. And we have to pick them. And that sort of sums up where we are now. We're in a position as a team where we're weak, but we've also got to pick almost half a team on necessity because there are no rotational options. And people want to talk about tactics. How can you talk about tactics and formations when you know as well as I do the manager has got to pick nearly half a team on necessity because he hasn't got anything else? And that's not something that gets reported because so much reporting and coverage is lazy around a formation which really belongs on an episode of Peppa Pig. It's so basic. We should be having conversations about the enormity of the challenge that the manager's got. I mean, last season, it was injury crisis that Ten Hag could utilise. Why is Amorim not allowed to utilise the same excuse? This is not his players. He's been given one player, and that's it. He hasn't got a rotational goalkeeper, and a goalkeeper needs dropping. He hasn't got a rotational striker, apart from a 17-year-old, which you can't really start at the moment. He hasn't got any number 10s beyond Garnacho and Xerxes, so if one storms down the tunnel, he still have to pick him. He's picking Bruno Fernandes as a midfielder, and he's got to pick Dalot every game because we haven't got anyone else there either. So we're hoping that all 5 of those players perform in a game we need to win. I mean, statistically, that is a problem, isn't it? There's 5 players in that team that you'd have big question marks over for different reasons. That's nearly half a team in a game that's crucial for our season, and I've got to predict to win as well. I mean, we probably need all of those 5 players to play well and the other 6 to play well to beat Fulham. And I think this is for me why I'm going to go with a Man United loss. And I do not want it. I don't want it, but I have to be realistic. I said against Ipswich we would win 3-1. We won 3-2, but that was just a score prediction. In no way, shape or form at any point did I disrespect Ipswich. And I'm not going to disrespect Fulham, who are better than Ipswich. They've got a fantastic away record. They've had a day extra. They've got a better team, and we've got a team that Amorim is trying to build, but is picking half of it on necessity. And I think we lose this game. I think we lose this game maybe 2-1, 2-0. And then the season does become all about the Europa League. But I think it's going to be very difficult, as I said. Get your comments in below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are you happy with that team? What team would you pick? What are your score predictions? And why are the media not talking more about the limited options this manager's got, rather than the obsession with a tactical system that actually really works really well when we've only got 10 men? We need to make it work better with regards to performance. And I think that's something I would add as well. We're unable to build performance. Remember, I've been saying for the last few weeks, I just want to see some performance. We can't build performance because every lineup he puts out is like a band-aid. It's like, I expect Bob Geldof to start singing at some point, because we literally are putting a plaster over an open wound. We can't build performance because people are in different positions or having to play when they're not playing very well. How do you build performance? Your team is always as strong as your weakest link. And we've got a few weakest links in that team at the moment. So it could be, look, if we're going to win this, I would say it'll be another battle. And I hope we can. But at some point, logic kicks in, and I think Fulham are a better team than us. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. I'll speak to you on the next one.